Alright, let me see what we can do here.
Now, right here's the full history of the Natoma. Now, do you want that along with, and this is his experience in the war on this?
It's all right there. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's
How do
a
you throw
story.
that stuff out of your way?
Huh?
Men don't like that stuff on the table when they're working.
Is that all right there then?
Here, I need that. No, just throw it. If this bothers you, take
I'm
it.
not bothered.
Or just toss the other one over here then.
Okay.
You're like my brothers that said I don't want any ruffles.
Okay, let me go and get my notebook.
Okay. Is this your little dog there? And a picture of it?
That's a friend's little dog. I'll let you see
That's
mine.
a friend of yours, huh?
Yes, that's, she died last year ago, 2nd of October, and she hadn't had him so long, and she's crazy about it.
Well, oops.
You may know Ab Hafner.
Who was it?
Ab Hafner and Juanita.
Yeah.
Now, pardon?
Yeah, now wait a minute. Southwester? They live in Southwester?
No, they live on Jackson Avenue. He and Ted went and took my husband and took their examination, and then they left, of course, together. But I think Ab went to Texas, and Ted, you went to Tennessee.
Okay. Let me ask you a question then. I'll fill this out when we get going in. You're speaking about your brother, aren't you? Or Herman? Who are we talking about today?
We're speaking about this little fellow right here.
And who is that? Herman McCleese. And he is what relation to you?
He's my brother. I maybe fed him, birthed him, and diapered him, so you know.
Herman
McCleese Jr.
Now, did he have a middle name?
I used to think and put Junior in the center. I said, do you want to have a middle name? I'll give you one.
So you gave him one. So we'll be talking about World War II.
Right.
And when is his birthday?
Yesterday.
When was it? Oh, it was yesterday? So we're talking about October the 20th?
1924.
And today is the 21st. Oh, and okay now, what is your name?
Julia Ann McCleese.
Julia,
Julia.
Ann, A-N-N?
A-N-N.
McCleese. And that,
There's old Irish McCleese.
good. Now, this is not your married name, is it?
No.
Okay.
My husband's dead.
Okay, what was his name?
Cheney.
Cheney, C-H-A-N-E-Y.
Yeah.
Now, when is your birthday?
You really hungry?
Well, you know...
Now I'm pulling your leg. I've got to quit teasing people.
Okay,
It's 6/29/1916.
6/29/16.
Right.
And,
83.
all right, let's see. When did Herman pass away?
He passed away the 24th of January, 95.
24th?
Now, which do you want first? Do you want
Let me tell you. We have a lot of documents and paper and that sort of thing here. We'll get into that.
Now, here is his discipline. He was made superintendent of the Big Mason Department.
I see. Let me get into that thing. Now, his name is Herman McCleese, and his date of birth, like you were telling me, was October the 20th, 1924. Okay. And And what was his address when he was? And you are his sister.
Yeah, we lived together.
Okay. What was your address when you were growing up?
Oh, Ruggles, Kentucky. He was born. Are you familiar with Kentucky?
Some, but I haven't heard of
You're not
Ruggles.
from Kentucky. You know, you're a foreigner over here.
I am a foreigner.
Well, he was born Ruggles, Kentucky, Lewis County. Now it's about.
Lewis County. Near Vanceburg?
Yes, you can go to Vanceburg and out, or you can go to Garrison and take Route 3 out, and it's about 10 miles. It's right between Carter County, well, you're not...
Is it still on the map?
No, I've got the map for it.
It's still on the map?
Yes. It's between Stafford's Hill. Stafford's Hill is in Carter County. And we lived about halfway between Carter and Garrison.
Okay. Now,
Tell me, what was your parents' name? The name of your parents, your mother and your father.
I got that right here, too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, here's the ships.
okay, we'll take a look at that.
I had a nice big one that was framed, and after he died, I gave it to my sister that did all this work on it.
Okay, now, now your parents' name?
Herman McCleese Sr.
Herman McCleese was father's
My
name.
father. I used to tell Herman he was his father.
Now, what was your mother's name?
Her name was Bess Fitz McCleese. My mother was a Fitz.
Fitz.
Morgan County, Kentucky.
P-H-I-P-P-S. And her first name was Bess.
Bess.
B-E-S. And she was from Morgan County, Kentucky.
Right.
Okay. Now, do you remember your father's parents' name?
Yes. Charles and Sarah McCleese.
Charles and Sarah McCleese were the names of your grandparents on your father's side.
Right.
What was Sarah's maiden name?
Patton.
P-A-T-T-O-N? And where were they from? Lewis County.
Grandma was born and raised in Carter County, which is the back door of Lewis County, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And Grandpa was born in Kentucky.
All right.
Now, his parents originated from Scotland.
This is Grandpa McCleese.
Right.
And his first name was what?
Charles.
Charles McCleese. And his parents' names, do you know your great-grandparents' names on your father's side?
God never did here, isn't it?
Okay, that's all right.
My sister did geology.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And let me see.
Well, let's just get your sister's name down. What's her name?
Beulah.
Beulah?
B-E-U-L-H, and she hated it.
Beulah?
This thing's not on there, so.
Yes, it is.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, we've been rolling. And this is, it's about Herman. Where are we?
All right.
Beulah. Not Beulah.
Beulah were twins. No, her name's...
Beulah and Beulah?
They're the twins.
Here's Beulah.
Right.
Beulah and her twin Beulah.
Right.
Beulah and Beulah. That's great.
All the names and
now,
she could kill them.
They were from Scotland, you said.
Their dad's...
grandparents.
Right.
You know what part of Scotland?
No, she I know.
Okay, now let me ask you this. Let's go over to your mother and her parents' names you told me. Okay, now here we go back. The family of Herman McCleese Jr. Okay. Now we go back to the Phipps family. Bess Phipps. Now who's Thomas and Jehu? J-E-H-U.
That was Grandma's
Name?
Jehu Phipps and Benjamin was Grandpa's brothers.
Oh, I see. Now who's Grandpa?
Thomas
Phipps.
That's Mama's father.
So your grandfather's name on your mother's side was Thomas Phipps.
Right.
Okay. Now, what was your grandmother's name on your mother's side?
I think it's Eliza.
Eliza? Do you know her maiden name?
Ratliff.
Eliza Ratliff. Now, Thomas Phipp's parents, do you know his parents?
No, but I've got it all in the geology book. If you'd like to take that with
that's all right. That's all right. The reason I ask these questions is that 100 years from now, people are going to be watching, and this gives them direction to go if they're doing research. And
well, that's great because this sister, she and her husband, they went all over all over states getting up.
That's good.
And I've got a real thick book in there that tells all about it.
Now, let's go in the opposite direction. Was Herman ever married? Was Herman married?
Our Herman?
Herman, your brother.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what was his wife's name?
Minnie Ely.
Minnie?
Yes, and they were divorced.
Minnie, M-I-N-N-I-E.
Right.
And her maiden name was Yealy.
Ely.
Y-E-L-E-Y.
Yes.
Okay.
And here's the rundown here of his children. Do you want that also?
Well, now she was that her maiden name, Yealy?
Yes.
Now she was one of 6 children of John, Franklin, and I.O. Hayes Yealy.
Right.
They were born in Suffolk County. Okay. Now the children of Herman and Minnie, how many did they have? They had 4 children? Okay.
One is his oldest one is Dennis, but he lost.
I see. What is his name, please?
Dean. Harry Dean McCleese.
And now he had 3 sons and 1 daughter. And Dean is a dentist. And he was also in the Army. He needs to get down and see me. And he is married to Sue Curtis. And they have 2 sons, Howard, Dean, and Joseph. Okay. Now, what about the other?
Here, now, I've got the full history here. You can see it in the whole deal here. This is our reunion. Now, there's Herman and his... I don't think Janie and Ron were there that day.
Okay.
Here's the rest now, and this gives you the full history of that.
Okay.
Now,
his children also, he had Dean. Now, what were the other sons?
Richard.
Richard McCleese. Now, where is Richard McCleese?
He teaches out at Clay. He coached out there a long while.
All right, good.
And Ron, he's...
Ron?
Well, Ron, it tells you, I bet you just a minute. Ron is custodian and maintenance person
At
Eastern School System. He had to move out of Clay District. But now here's the whole deal.
Okay, let's see here where Ron is employed by the Clay and Eastern School Districts as a custodian maintenance person. Okay. He has a craft shop and it's called Country Hunter. Okay. And
Ron's real good with his hands.
is he?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Now, he had a daughter.
Janie.
Who is Jane Elizabeth. Call her Janie. And she is a dental assistant. She is also a poet and a writer, likes to play piano, and is active in her church.
She's never been married.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this question. I have a little bit of, have some notes to myself about questions to ask. How much education did Herman have?
Well, I'll tell you, I'd fill you in here on something you know. I think he went to high school at, the mom and dad were separated. Here's the rest of his grandchildren and their family.
Okay. Did he graduate from high school?
No, he had 2 years.
He had 2 years of high school.
Right.
And then why did he leave school? Go to work or go into the service?
Go into service.
Okay. And did he join or was he drafted?
He joined.
What was his occupation when he retired?
From the mill?
He was at the steel mill?
Yeah, he was superintendent of the brick mason department.
Okay. And he retired from there when?
In 1980 when they closed.
When they closed.
Uh-huh.
Did he go to work anywhere else? Okay. So now he joined the Navy. He joined the Navy?
Right.
All right. And
September 1942.
September 1942. And September, do you know where he did his basic training?
Yes, at
Could it have been Great Lakes?
Great Lakes.
Okay.
It's all in here. I was going over
Okay, let's
all
see that then. Let's see
I was going over it.
Let's start with the military history then.
Okay.
I've got the family background.
Okay.
Did you say your parents were separated?
Yes.
Now, where did she live? Where did your mother live?
My mother lived here in Portsmouth.
And then where did your father live?
He lived in Kentucky.
All right, now here's a little story here. Here it is right here. World War II Naval Experience of Herman McCleese, Jr.
That's it.
Okay. Wolfer's Landing. Is that where he lived?
No, my sister that did all of this, she lived in Hillsboro, South Carolina, right out of Chapel Hill.
Okay.
And so she came here, and they always pulled an Airstream.
Okay.
And so she wanted us to meet her up here at Wolfer's Landing, and she took all of this.
How about I read this? Is that all right? We'll just put it right on the tape. I went on the USS Matrona the day it was commissioned, November 8, 1944, and remained on it as water tender, first class, until about November 30th, 1945. I mustered out at Toledo, Ohio on December 7th, 1945. I joined the Navy on July 10th, 1942 in Baltimore, Maryland. What was he doing in Maryland?
He was working on the railroad.
Okay. He must have quit school to go to work, and then when he got old enough, he joined the Navy.
No, he was contemplating going in the Navy when he went to Maryland, and he worked a little while there before on the railroad before he went into the Navy.
It says he went to boot camp in Newport, Rhode Island. He was in Company 123 until boot camp ended. 2 men were selected for submarine duty. The other man who was selected along with me was named Harris, I think. We were transferred to Treasure Island, San Francisco Bay. We waited there to be transferred to Pearl Harbor. We shipped out September 6, 1942, and went to submarine base Pearl Harbor. It took 3 days to get to Pearl Harbor's submarine base. We went aboard the USS Ortolan, O-R-T-O-L-A-N, Ortolan, which was an auxiliary submarine rescue ship about 2 or 3 days after arriving at Pearl Harbor submarine base. We exercised with the submarines off Diamond Head for about a month. Our ship was responsible for picking up dummy torpedoes which were launched by submarines which were training exercises. I wasn't assigned to duty on the submarine because it was decided that there was a need for me to serve on a orderly on the ship that he was on. We received orders about October 1st, 1942 to go to Guadalcanal. We arrived there on November 3rd, 1942. The night before we arrived, we saw a naval battle between some cruisers and destroyers. 2 American ships, the Minneapolis and the Pensacola, had their bows blown out. We gathered logs to repair the Minneapolis and the Pensacola. We went from Tulaga, T-U-L-I-G-A, to Guadalcanal, where a transport had sunk in shallow water. Unloaded supplies, raised her up, patched her up, sent her on her way. We went up in the hills and cut timber and helped put the bulkheads back in the Minneapolis and the Pensacola. The Minneapolis and the Pensacola made it back to Pearl Harbor, where they were in dry dock, and until 3 months, and within 3 months they were back in the Pacific. When we got into Pearl Harbor, they had their bows already made up, ready to be put on the ships. They lost several hundred men, everybody that was below the bridge. From Tuliga, T-U-L-I-G-A.
He pronounced that Tulagi.
Tulagi?
Uh-huh.
Okay. We went to Guadalcanal, where a transport ship was sunk in shallow water. We raised her up, patched her up, and I think she went to Noumea. N-O-U-M-E-I-A. Noumea was an island in the New Caledonia group. On Christmas Day, 1942, the USS Orland was ordered to Guadalcanal, where we shelled the beach all day. We were supporting the Army. We sunk a Japanese submarine off of Savo Island. When we were in the South Pacific, we hadn't seen a ship for days when we passed this merchant ship from Australia. We gave them a signal. You know, your signal at sea changes every hour. Well, he was slow about answering. When we swung the guns around on him, now, buddy, that light began to blink right now, I'm telling you. Herman was asked why his ship was shelling the beach. Because our ship was supporting the Army who was pinned on the beach. When you go into the jungle 100 yards from the beach, you couldn't even see the sky because of the growth of vegetation. Those guys were pinned in there. After we shelled the beach, we pulled out and had a swimming party about 4 o'clock in the evening. After that, we went and sunk a Japanese submarine right off Savo Island. It was one of the biggest Japanese submarines ever sunk. The bow was sticking probably about 50 feet out of the water. The ship was so close to the beach that they figured that he was trying to get some big Japanese official off. And when we sunk him, the stern went underwater with the bow sticking out. Well, they ordered us to go down there and put the divers down. We dived on that thing probably a month. Every evening we'd bring the ship's charts up. There would be a party there to take them to Henderson Field and fly them back to Pearl Harbor that evening. And that's where they got all the maps for truck and Rabaul, R-A-B-U-L. And all of them islands up there, you know, in other words, where the Japanese had laid the mines. Our crew had been told not to bring up anything from the sunken ships that would cause intoxication. Well, them guys would weigh a bucket down. There wouldn't be any officers around when they would bring it up. The Japanese bottle was just like ours, only bigger than a fifth. Man, in the evening, they would get drunk. The divers would go down and burn the hatches off, and the dead bodies would float to the surface like corks. And there was swell that big. You know how waves was against the ship? Well, there would be 3 or 4 of them bodies washing against the ship. And now I'm telling you, we didn't eat for weeks at a time, and that's a fact. They would put us over in the whaleboats with grappling hooks, and we had to hook the bodies and drag them out. The porpoises would jump that high out of the water. There would be whole schools of them after the bodies. We would tug the bodies out to sea, to get them away from the ship. The bodies were very white, and most of them were floating on their backs. We couldn't stand the smell. After we finished working on the big sunken ship, the Pittsburgh got hit, and we towed the Pittsburgh to the New Hebrides, Hebrides, and we stayed in there maybe a week and had recreation on the beach. There was a big supply tender, the Dixie. We stocked up on stores, and then we went back to Guadalcanal. April 7, 1943, we were alerted in the morning, about 8 o'clock. There were 105 Japanese planes coming down from Rabaul, which was a big Japanese base by Pearl Harbor. They arrived about 1 in the afternoon. I don't know how many ships were there. Each ship was on its own. We shot down 1 or 2 planes that day. We got credit for 3. I'd say that Erin Ward was from here to there from us. She was a destroyer. And I forget what her number was, but anyway, she took a direct hit right down the smokestack, down to the fire room, and blew the whole bottom out. That's where this boy who was buried up here at Memorial Park died. I worked laying bricks with his brother many a day and never knew that they were brothers until after the bricklayer was dead. I was up there at the cemetery. I think Gladys and Molly was with me. Who's that?
Molly is my oldest sister.
Who's Gladys?
Gladys is my nickname.
Oh, okay. And you were there, and he walked up to his grave.
Yes.
Several people were around his grave, and his sister was there, and Bill Deaver was his brother, and Bill and me laid bricks together for many a day. I never knew that Bill was his brother. Anyway, when she took the hit, we got orders to go alongside and assist her, and we took in her in tow. We began to tow her toward Tulaga, and we towed her till about 7 at night, and then she sunk. We had to cut the lines loose. When we cut the lines loose, she listed from us, and some of the boys that was on her tried to jump between ships, trying to jump onto our ship. And they went right down between them, and she come back and just crushed them all to pieces. I don't know how many of them we had aboard our ship. They was dead, and they had them back on the fantail covered up with big tarp over them. We towed her till about 7, that's when she sunk. Next day we went out and dropped some boys down where she was sunk, because there was divers down to get the safe off of her and get the quinine. Quinine was scarce. After that was in April of 43, we got orders to go back to Hebrides. The USS McKinley, a big transport, came into the channel and got into the minefield, and she sunk. She had about 5,000 troops on her. We dived on her probably until December. They got jeeps and rifles and ammunition and quinine. That's really what they were after, the quinine. They needed that. They brought the ship's safe up. I don't know how many thousands of dollars was in it. The crew dived on the ship from about May till December or January. They didn't lose too many troops because the ship sunk so close to shore. Naturally, they lost the guys that were down below. We dived on her probably 3 months. You lay a 4-point anchor on her so the ship won't swing. In other words, you're sitting stationary. We were there for about 4 months, and then we got a new skipper. In all, we had been in that part of the Pacific about 20 months. You know how they change skippers? They call you all to quarters, and they read their orders and all that bull, you know. The guy that was the captain, I forget what his name was, he said, "You fellas have been down here long enough, and my first job is to try and get you back to the States." He wasn't aboard very long when he got us brought back to the States. That's when I got leave and came home to Gladys' house in March of 44. That would be you. He came home to see you on leave, didn't he? You remember that?
Oh, yes.
Were you?
My mother was in Baltimore.
Oh, yeah.
My mother and my sisters was working in the hospital there in Baltimore.
I see.
Bethlehem Steel.
Now, where were you?
I was right there where he said he was coming. I lived at 1803 William Street.
Oh, I see. In Portsmouth?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he always hung on to me like a second mother.
Herman was asked what the qualifications were for selection to attend submarine school, since he and only one other person had qualified for such. Well, you had to be, I suppose, the biggest qualification was you had to have the personality to get along with somebody. They ask you all kinds of questions. They put you in front of a psychiatrist, give you going over. I was sent over to be attached to a submarine, but they needed me somewhere else. They put me aboard a vessel that was attached to Submarine Squadron 4. We carried the diving bell, the deep sea divers. We must have had 15 deep sea divers. When we were up in the New Hebrides on Christmas, I think it was the Christmas of 43, the battleship Washington lost its anchor. Well, you know, I don't know how much one of them anchors cost. But we went up there, and on Christmas Day, they put the deep sea divers down and at 300 feet retrieved the anchor. They were so deep that when we talked to them, they were bugging, mentally out of it. Well, they was getting $5 an hour back then. And then there's an exclamation mark there. Them guys came back with sea bags full of money. There was no place to spend it. The captain of the Washington, I don't know how many gallons of ice cream, he sent over to our ship. In the spring of 44, I came to Gladys' house, you again. He stayed for 30 days. Went back to Long Beach and was aboard ship till about June, and then I got a transfer to the Philadelphia Navy Yard, back across country. I came back to Gladys and stayed about 15 days, and then went to Maryland where Mom lived, and you, and Jean. Who's you? When he said, somebody's, who's he talking to?
Me.
Well, okay.
My baby sister that died that compiled all this.
Okay. What was her name?
Beulah.
Beulah, right. And Jean, now who's Jean?
He's my youngest brother, Eugene.
And then I went to Philadelphia Navy Yard on June 29, 1944, and I went to Naval Boiler and Turbine Laboratory School for about 6 weeks. That's when they was putting all these new ships in commission. They had a mock-up set there in the fire room, the engine room, just the way it was aboard ship. Well, I was there 6 or 7 weeks, and then I picked the Natrona. You pick the ships according to your grades, and I picked the Natrona. If your grades were high enough, you got to select the ship you wanted to go on. I got transferred back to Treasure Island, San Francisco. I was there from sometime in September till November the 8th, when we put the Natrona in commission. When we went aboard a ship, everything on that ship was exactly as it had been in school. Everything. When we came out of the Richmond Navy Yard, I had to watch in the fire room because I was the senior water tender. They ain't nobody down there but me. Me and 2 or 3 more firemen. I've often thought, man, if I had turned the wrong valve and burned them boilers up, I'd be out the trails yet. After I finished school in Philadelphia, I was a water tender first class. This was like a stationary engineer. Herman was asked why he selected the Natrona. Because I wanted to go back to the West Coast. I didn't want to go out in the Atlantic. I didn't want to make the run to Merrimack or to Russia. That's when all that submarine warfare was going on out there in the Atlantic. They'd start 100 ships and maybe 15 of them would get through. I was looking for survival. You'd hear the guys come in there at Newport and talk about that run. Ice froze all over the place. After I shipped out to Treasure Island, we put the Natrona in commission on November the 8th, 1944. Then the rest of it is in that book there. What book's it called?
That's in his Jamestown.
A book about the ship?
Yes.
Okay.
And I will get that book. I called him. But see, he lives out in Pike County.
Oh.
He borrowed my book to read it.
You're still borrowing it?
But he'll get it back. But I'll tell you what, I'll get that book if you'd like to read it.
Well, I think we have plenty of information here. Let me continue here and see what we have. I believe we underwent 87 air attacks. It was up there at Okinawa. The Natrona was an attack transport. That means that we landed the beach parties. I don't know what the crew size was. There must have been about 250 men aboard. An attack transport could haul about 5,000 troops. We'd stay off about a mile from the beach, and then we'd put the big boats over, let them down, and then the troops would go down on the next. The troops that we carried were the Army and the Marines. I was on the Orland almost 2 years, and on the Natrona about 1 year. I liked the duty on the Orland the best. It was like family. It was a small ship. There was a boy from over at Olive Hill who was on the Orland, and I went over to see him a couple of times. He's dead now. Well, he came to Gladys's house, and stayed all night when we were ready to go back from leave. When I was on the Natrona, I saw service in the Philippines and in Okinawa, all the way up to Japan. We were the first ship that tied up to the docks in Nagoya, Nagoya, must be a Japanese city, in 1945. We were about 60 miles from where they dropped the A-bomb. Nagoya was the steel center, the Pittsburgh of Japan. We put in there after the surrender was signed. We had the 27th Infantry Division aboard our ship. It was the Army of Occupation. We had them aboard ship, and we were with the outfit that was training for the invasion of Japan. Coming from the channel to the sea was just like coming up the Ohio River here, only there were hills on both sides, very close to the channel. There was a peg-legged harbor pilot who came out and took us through the channel. Boy, we tied up to dock about noon, and there was jabbering and looking up. This was just a few days after Japan surrendered. We were in port there about a week, just long enough to let the troops off and to unload the equipment. On this air attack I was telling you about on April 7, 1943, John F. Kennedy was on an LST just coming into that area that day. That was in Guadalcanal. They were going over to the PT base at Tulaga, Tuliga, and that was the first action he ever saw. And well, they were on the PT boats. There was about 50 there at Tulaga at the PT base. And they were made out of plywood, had a couple of 50 caliber machine guns and maybe 4 to 6 torpedoes, and they'd go out every night. About dark, you'd see them go out. And I remember one time one of them took a 3-inch shell, and we went out and towed him in. But I don't remember what the number or who the captain of it was. I've seen the PT boats go out every night when we were up at Tulapa. The responsibility of the PT boats was to make torpedo runs on the Japanese ships. They were fast, they could get in and get out, and the torpedo boats were effective. Yeah, we had our hands full with them Japs. Herman was asked if he had a chance to go ashore when his ship went to Japan after its surrender. We went into Wakahama, Wakahama, during the typhoon. Wakahama is in the real southern part of Japan. We were there about 30 days. That's where I got the kimono that I brought back to Deanie. Who's Deanie?
My older sister's daughter, our niece.
We were
There
there.
she is.
There's a picture of her. Okay. Here, hold that up there in front of the camera. Now, this is Deanie. That looks like a picture of about... When was that picture taken?
55.
55.
It's a graduation picture.
Of high school graduation. She's a beautiful looking girl.
Thank you.
And that's
Very proud of her.
What does she do now?
She's been in the school system in Columbus ever since she was
She's a teacher?
a teacher. Yeah.
Well, so she got the kimono. She's the one. Does she still have it?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I'll bet. And let's see. That's where I got the kimono that I brought back to Dean. We were there during the typhoon. That's where we turned the engines over and the anchor was dropped right in the harbor to keep the typhoon's wind from blowing the ship ashore. That's about it now. I'll get all the details. My serial number was 2584831. I was in B Division.
Thanks for reading that.
He had quite an adventure, didn't he?
Yes, I'll tell you. I'm sorry you didn't get to meet that boy.
Yes, I would like to have done that. Did he have any decorations, any ribbons?
Yes, it tells you about this. Let me look at it. He wouldn't take them.
He wouldn't take the ribbons?
He wouldn't take them. It'll be on one of these. This is his history of this Norton.
Okay, where he got...
And...
Did he write this up?
No, my sister wrote it up. Bill, or Dee, we always call her.
Okay. Let's get a picture of him.
There's one of his pictures, but I gave you his native picture that he did. Right here.
Hold that up
And these
there.
are pictures of the first,
Oh, okay, now wait a minute.
reunion.
First reunion. It's a pig with an apple in his mouth.
Oh, was that ever an experience? You know, I would do. He was severe diabetic.
I wouldn't have eaten that for nothing.
No, and I didn't. Hey, I got one look at that thing, and so when I took Herman's meal to him, he said, "Where's yours?" And I said, "I don't believe I'm hungry."
Here's the first reunion of the crew of the USS Latrona, October 1992, Kansas City, Missouri. And this must be on the top picture. These are all the men that were on the ship.
Right.
And the bottom picture are all their wives and loved ones and that sort of thing. Am I correct?
Right.
Did you go to that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, where are you? You got to hold it up here in the camera.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
There's Herman right there.
There's where he is right there.
Right here.
Now, wait a minute. Is he sitting down or standing up?
Oh, he's standing there.
What?
Take
another look. Point at that.
Right here. Yes. Right there.
Okay. He's right. Let's get over. Right there?
That's Herman.
Okay. That's Herman right there. Now, where are you?
Well, we're here with the lady.
Yeah.
I'm right there, and here's our baby sister right here.
Okay, let me see that. Oh, yeah. You were there over there by that post. And
I was trying to hide it, so you got it anyway.
hold this picture up. There's a good picture of him. Let me see if we're in the... I'm sure we're in the camera there. Hold it up just a little higher. Okay. I'm going to come in on that.
Now, this was after he'd had his 2 open heart surgeries, and you can see how swollen his...
Go up a little higher now.
All right.
Go up a little higher now. A little lower. There you are right there. Okay. Now, I'm going to read the inscription. It says, I remember the wonderful smell of Uncle Herman's cigar and the fun we always had at his house. He was always sweet to us. I loved playing at Eden Park. To me, their house was always happy chaos. Nancy McLeod Goodwin. Who is that?
That's Bee's youngest daughter.
Oh, okay.
Oh, they all love Herman.
I'll bet they do. Okay, very good.
Let's see what else is.
His name picture, see.
Oh.
Here's what we're looking for right here.
Now, his picture, this little article says that his picture is hung in the Natrona County Courthouse in Casper, Wyoming.
Right.
That's where that word came from, Natrona County.
Right.
Oh, Wyoming.
That's why I wanted you to read that a moment ago, because it was...
And a written account of his World War II experiences are included in a time capsule in the International Airport there. Very good. Let me read this a little bit here. I think we have a pretty good story. In 1992, at his sister's request, would that be you?
That was Bee.
Okay. Herman McCleese Jr. gave a recorded account of his World War II Navy experience. He served at different times on two different ships, the USS Ortolan and the USS Natrona. He entered the Navy in July 1942, served as a water tender first class on the USS Natrona from November 8, 1944, the day of its commissioning, until its return from the war to the San Francisco Bay on November 30th, 1945. Herman was honorably discharged from the Navy on December 7th, 1945. Last year, his sister, Beulah Phillips of Hillsboro, North Carolina, read a letter to the editor written in the Chapel Hill newspaper from the 9th grade class at Dean Morgan Junior High School in Casper, Wyoming. The class requested information from World War II veterans. They specifically wanted stories from veterans who had passed through the local military air base on their way to overseas assignments. The goal of the class was to place all information gathered in the time capsule. Herman's World War II naval account was sent. Even though he had not passed through the military base there, inclusion of his story in the time capsule was appropriate because one of the ships he had served on was named after Natrona County, where Casper is located. Many years after the war was over, the USS Natrona was dismantled. A few months ago, its helm was transported to Casper for dedication, a permanent installation in the Natrona County Courthouse. Prior to the dedication ceremony, Miss L. Stanley Lowe, president of the World War II Commemorative Association of Casper, asked permission to read from the material submitted to the Dean Morgan Junior High School program. And the dedication ceremony was held October 9, 1995 at the Chamber of Commerce in Casper. Mr. Lowe told of Herman's service on the ship and related the ship's course across the Pacific. As a result of the ceremony, the Board of Commissioners in Natrona County requested a photograph of Herman and the two shipmates who had delivered the ship's helm to Casper. So he went to Casper with the helm. Was that the deal?
No, he didn't go with it.
There were two others that did.
There's two others did. And
photos of Chuck Bailey of Grand Junction, Colorado, Robert Coates of Riverton, Wyoming, and Herman McCleese of Portsmouth, Ohio will be on for display in the courthouse as representation of all men who served aboard the ship during World War II. After Mr. Lowe received Herman's photograph, he said, "Everyone to whom I've shown Herman's picture agrees with me that he's about as typical looking an American sailor as one will ever find. He literally typified what all of us..." You got a crow talking at me up there. He literally typified what all of us looked like back then. The written account of Herman's World War II naval experience was included in the time capsule installed in Casper's International Airport. It is scheduled to be opened 100 years after the end of World War II. That's interesting. In August, the year 2045.
and that'll be here before you know it.
Before you know. Herman was a resident of Sauter County all his adult life. He was superintendent of the brick mason department at Empire Detroit Steel in New Boston until his retirement
in 1980. He died of a stroke in January 1995. He was married to Minnie Healy McCleese, who died of cancer in 1993. They had 4 children: Dr. Howard D. McCleese, Richard L. McCleese, Jane E. McCleese, and Ronald D. McCleese, all of whom still reside in the area.
He was gone when she had this done.
That's too bad. Okay. Well, let's see here. What else do we have? This was attached to this.
Now, you feel free if you'd like to take that with you.
Well, I'm just interested in getting it on tape. Here's a little more having to do with the review.
Yes. And then here is the officer. Here's the letter. I met this fellow. It cards in there, and this is a letter from Larson. And he was the board that ship with Herman. And then there's the name of all of the. Well, those are the people that signed his discharge papers.
Okay.
And
here's a picture.
that's he and my other brother Wayne when they were little.
Herman, the 7th child. Now hold that up there.
Okay.
Brothers, what's this picture here? Okay, is that when he was a sailor?
That's when he was a sailor.
Very good. I'm going to put that right there now. That comes after this.
Okay.
Okay, now hold that up there. And this picture here is 2 brothers together, isn't it?
Now that's Wayne and Herman.
Wayne and Herman. Okay.
When I got it right.
You got it right. We're okay. Let me see that other picture now.
This one?
Yeah. Yeah, hold that up a little bit. How old is Herman in there? Hold it up higher.
Yes, Herman was 5 years old.
Hold up higher. Higher.
Okay.
Higher. There you are. He's 5 years old in that picture?
He's 5 years old in that
Okay.
picture.
All right, now let me see a picture of him as a sailor.
All right.
Now this is on your lap there. On your lap.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's good. How old was he when that picture was taken?
17 years old.
17, as a sailor. Okay. Do you know where that picture was taken?
Yes, that was taken on my sister's home in Baltimore.
What's the next picture there? Okay.
That's the one I want.
That's a good one. Let's see. It says Herman McCleese Jr., July 10th, 1942, September 7th, 1945, United States Navy. Well,
I was just, while I was waiting for you to come, I was just noticing how Mom's hair grew in a whiskey. My mother was Indian.
oh, really?
And then he got Dad's dimple.
I see that. Okay. Well, I think we have a lot then to go into the library for Herman McCleese Jr. And is there anything else that you'd like to say finally to the people that are watching this 100 years from now?
I just think that they missed an awful lot of heartache from this in World War II.
I'm sure they did.
You know.
Yes.
And I hope that they will get to see all of this and realize what this boy has experienced.
Appreciate what they did for us.
They went in babies and came out old men.
Many of them did.
Yes, they really did.
Thanks very much for having me up here.
Well, I'm so glad I'm glad you read that, because I didn't feel like I had the strength to do it.
Well, I got through it, didn't I?
You sure did.
Okay.